Here. All right. Let's see. We are recording. So if you're watching this video, this is the Metro Miami Spartans office video coming at you, teaching service calls. I'm here with Jonathan Castell, who sold over, I don't know, good amount in his career sales. What do you got in career sales right now, Jonathan?
65K.
65K. And how much did you sell in service calls in like the last couple weeks of summer?
Did last week's of summer like 20 grand. It was off of service calls.
The last 3 or 4 weeks just on service calls for the end of the summer here too. So Jonathan's going to walk us a little bit through the how-tos to have a good service call, how to show up the right way, how to plant the buying seed from the very beginning of the presentation, a little bit maybe how to touch their knives the right way, really just how to make sure that you're selling and having sales excellence in service calls. They're a phenomenal opportunity if you know how to rake them in right. Can be an awesome opportunity to gather and layer more foundation for recommendations, to get some quick sales in, and to also be networking with more people and get into different areas that you might not already be in here. So, Dana, if you want to grab that door here real quick, and we'll get started. So, with that said, without further ado, Jonathan Castell, want to guess, and I'll ask some questions along the way here to help facilitate this. But why don't you just go ahead and walk me through at least your first few keys here when it comes to setting up service calls and what you do going into them, and then we'll kind of take it from there with questions.
Okay, cool. So, I mean, first part of any sale, any appointment, any demo is obviously the mentality. I mean, with service calls, majority what I found is 90% is belief, right? What I found, I mean, honestly, customers should feel more comfortable. I mean, spending as much in Cutco as they own or even more. Now that they've had the product for years, they have that value built up. They've actually been able to use the product. So, having the belief that, when you go into an appointment and you see that your customer has a homemaker, having the belief that, dude, for that same appointment, for that same service call, you should be selling $1,000 or more. Simply because if they were comfortable spending $1,000 without even having the product in their hands, without even getting all that value, after years and years of built up value, they should be way more comfortable spending $1,000 again, right?
Yeah, I love that you make that point too. A lot of times in service calls, it just a lot of times you got to keep in mind who sold them this. They a lot of times they just drop $1,000, $1,200, $1,500 just because like their son or daughter had a job and they're like, yeah, sure, I'll get your set of knives. Here you go. And then now they've used the product for 5-10 years. They have product addiction and like they dropped it half the time without really even thinking about it or without actually having to like make a serious purchase, and they should be able to spend at least that much. So love that. Keep going, Jonathan.
Right. Exactly. Overall, I mean, like you got to have authority. I mean, like you are the authority of the demo and the appointment. I mean, just like every single appointment, it's important to stay in control. And I'll show you how to do that. So whenever going into it, basically the introduction, I mean, like, of course, firm handshake, smile whenever you're at the door. You always want to have your knives in your left hand or whatever you're holding in your left hand. So, of course, you have the right hand open and available to shake their hand. And you always want to say thanks for having it, okay? Now, one thing that I always do whenever I'm first going into the demo, I never have the knives in my hand. I never bring them. I always leave them in the car, just show with my planner. Like how, let's say if you had someone just coming for plumbing, they wouldn't bring their tools immediately. They just come in, hey, it's the right house, just checking it out, right? So what this allows me to do, and basically it allows me to set the whole tone for the demo where I'm not trying to sell, right? It's a service call. So service calls are about serving. So you want to make sure that you're focusing on the customer and not bringing the knives up as if you're just trying to sell to them again, right? So especially in the beginning, you're not sharing your goals. I mean, I even dropped the phrases, hey, Mrs. Jones, like just letting you know, like I'm not here to sell. I'm actually really, really big on service. Want to make sure like you feel like this is well worth your time as well too, right? So you want to set that, because once you set that, they're going to be way more comfortable, way more relaxed, and they're going to be way more open to you selling to them later on once you provide them a really, really great service.
That line one more time. I mean, I'll have that for the recording here, but just repeat it one more time here.
Yeah. So I'd actually just be like, hey, Mrs. Jones. Oh yeah. So just so you know, I'm actually not here to serve. I mean, I'm not here to sell. I'm actually really, really big on service. So I just want to make sure that you feel like it was really well worth your time as well too. So thank you so much for having me, Mrs. Jones. And then of course, just go straight into it, start building a rapport. All right. And I mean, like after that, of course, you want to bring them to the kitchen, building rapport. Now, one thing that a lot of people doing service calls run into an objection is that, you know, they kind of just leave, right? Usually if you have someone doing plumbing or like tiling, roofing, gardening, you don't just sit there with them. You kind of just walk out. And a lot of people have that mentality. Well, you want to set the tone and make sure that doesn't happen because you need them there for the entire appointment. So what I say, I mean, just reiterating it again. Hey, Mrs. Jones, I'm really, really big on service. And like I said, I do want to make sure that you feel like it was well worth your time for me to come out. So what I do is I just have my customers sit with us while I'm going through the sharpening, just so you feel and just so we make it so you're satisfied every step of the way, right? So just so you were satisfied every step of the way. And I mean, like through this, you're showing them that you're there to serve professionally, and they'll realize that, and they'll actually take the time to sit down.
If I heard that correctly, basically you're saying, hey, Miss Jones, you know, by the way, just as I'm going through this, I want to make sure I really take care of you and make sure I service your knives the right way. So what's best usually is you can actually sit down at a table with me while I sharpen and touch them up. That way you get a chance to see the process and you can make sure they're good to go. Is that essentially what you're saying?
Yeah. Essentially that's what you're saying, right? I mean, next step, pretty simple. I mean, you're taking out the sharpener. Now the way I like to do this, I like to have my sharpener, my blue book in whatever case I'm doing. I kind of like to kind of subtly take out the blue book and just place it on the table as if like as if I'm just moving things to the side to try and get to the sharpener in your bag. Once again, this is just subtly setting up like how you're gonna go into selling it, right? Like once again, you're not there to serve, so you don't just want to pull that out. So there are 4 questions that you wanna say, and this is actually what's going to set up that sales mind, right? So for one, the first things I always ask is, hey, Mrs. Jones, remind me, how long have you had your cut? And so, hey, Mrs. Jones, how long have you had your cut? Wow, that's awesome. Don't you just love them? Or aren't they awesome? Right? I mean, of course, what you're doing there with that question is just adding that emotional value back to the product, right? So, wow, that's awesome. Don't you just love them? And then I always love to say, so when you first got them, do you remember how you went about getting them? Was it a student, like one of your friends, sons, your own kids, or anything else like that? And then lastly, we want to say, aren't you glad you were recommended? Once again, this is setting you up for recommendation process. Aren't you glad you were recommended? I mean, Mrs. Jones, like, can you imagine where you'd be all these years without Cutco? And of course, saying that with a smile. And I mean, like, basically what you're doing here is just bringing them back, right? You're trying to re-spark that enthusiasm and get them back to that time when they're super happy buying the knives and basically creating that buying presence once again. So I always ask those questions and then just go straight back into rapport while sharpening the knives, right? You need me to repeat those questions? Or?
Jonathan, I got 3.
Yeah.
How long have you owned your Cutco? How did you get it? Aren't you glad you were recommended? What was the other one?
Yeah. So how long have you had your Cutco? Wow, that's awesome. Don't you just love them? The other one, when you first got them, do you know how you went about getting them? And then, aren't you glad you were recommended? Do you know? I mean, can you imagine? Once again, a joking tone. Can you imagine, Mrs. Jones, where you'd be all these years without your Cutco?
Yeah.
Right? So basically, adding value. Just
By the way,
value
how many recommendations were you averaging on these service calls when you were doing them?
I haven't had a service call when I got less than 10.
Yeah, you're getting 20 on a lot of them too, right?
Yeah.
Cool. All right, let's keep going.
Awesome, great. So you're building rapport for the first few knives, right? Now, for the first few knives, not bringing in the sale. So this is how you introduce taking out your blue book, right? What I love to say is, by the way, what most of my customers do while I'm sharpening is just flip through the book just to check out some of the new stuff, either for yourself or like for gifts for others, okay? And you want to slip in that by the way, because it's just an easier transition. So really, really more subtle and low key. It's not too abrupt. So hey, by the way, just to reiterate, by the way, what most of my customers do while I'm sharpening is just flip through the book just to check out some of the new stuff for like themselves or either for friends, for others. All right. Now, after you say this, you want to add in, and by the way, Mrs. Jones, I'm not here to sell you a thing. This is a service call, not a sales call. But there's a reason why most of my customers do end up buying from me on my service appointments. Okay. So let me show you how they do it, and then I'll tell you why. Okay. And you want to add that in because once again, you don't want them to get too defensive, especially when you're calling them on the phone. You're telling them, you know, hey, I'm not going to come to sell to you. So you don't want to break that promise and just pull that out. So you want to keep them comfortable. Okay. So what I have my customers do is just create a wish list, Mrs. Jones. Now you want to put their name on the top of the wish list, creating ownership, as if she's going to own every single thing that they put on there. So there's two ways to do this. Okay? You can either have them write their wish list or you can write it yourself. I mean, with my style, I write it myself. I mean, simply because, you know, I could put more stuff on the wish list, right? So the way you introduce is kind of like,
one comment I will make there for service calls or anything you're doing wish lists. It's always gonna be more powerful, and maybe Jonathan, you like it because you have more control when you write it down yourself. But it is more powerful if you can pull it off to have the customer write down their own wish list. Because when you're writing it, especially when they're doing gift sets, if you're doing accessorizing, right? Because when they write it down, it's different. And then writing down the names of people that they're getting the gifts for. But say, all right, Miss Jones, like, well, how about this? Like, you like that, right? Okay, cool. Go ahead and put that down on your list. Right? Okay, well, ice cream scoop, Miss Jones. You like ice cream, don't you? All right, cool. Go ahead and put down the ice cream scoop right on your list here, okay? Flour chat, and then like you're helping them kind of put the list down together too. That way, it's like them writing it down and not like you writing it for them. So, but again, I think both it's just like one's a higher level from it. Keep going.
Yeah. I mean, with you writing it down, just gives you a little bit more control over it, right? But basically, the way you want to introduce that wish list is basically like, hey, Mrs. Jones, like if Cutco was raining for the skies, like what would you be willing to accept, right? Like what would you willing to go out there and grab, Mrs. Jones? Like, and this is what I always say. So just to act it out for them and be like, so Mrs. Jones, if Cutco was raining for the skies, you'd run out and you'd be like, ooh, I'll take that. Like what would you grab, right? And then kind of just making it fun for them, right? And you want to always say, Mrs. Jones, while you're going through the blue book, you don't have to worry about asking about prices. Okay, because at the end of my sharpening, I'll just go ahead and check out the list and give you the total on all the prices on everything, just so you know how much everything is going to cost. Yeah, and some people, Mrs. Jones, this is just continuing in verbiage, and you can always just change it up. But I always say, by the way, Mrs. Jones, some people like to item individually. Some people like to add like the bigger sets of flatware or the cookware. Either way, I'll be able to price it all out for you at the end of the sharpening. And then when I'm done, I'll tell you what the price really would be. And then I'll tell you why so many of my customers choose to buy from me on my servicing appointments. Okay?
So I know right off the bat, you're going to tell them the price at the end, right? Hey, and then Miss Jones will let you know what the price, normally would be. And then I'll let you know why some of the customers end up buying on service call appointments.
Exactly. So many end up buying from me, right? And it kind of adds that hint of like curiosity, right? So you're going through, you're still sharpening, still building rapport. Throughout this, you have not shared your goals yet. You're not talking about yourself unless they ask. You're simply just building rapport, keeping it about the customer, right? Once again, service calls focused on them. It's about service, right? Now, I always love to say, Mrs. Jones, just so you know, like I'm one of the managers of the top office in the entire country. And now what that means is for you is that I'm able to get you some of the best, biggest deals, even on our servicing appointments. Right. So when we're done with the list and I'm done with the sharpening, I'll show you what it normally would be. And then I'll show you the crazy, ridiculous discount that you're going to get on everything today. Right. And if you notice that you're going to get on everything today, it is kind of throwing in that assuming the sale, right? Once again, like through it all, you're just framing their mindset that they are going to buy today and that you're going to get them a really, really good deal. Okay. So like I said, Mrs. Jones, like I said before, Mrs. Jones, I'm not here to sell you a thing, but there is a for sure cool way for you to go ahead and check out more Cutco and get the best deal and pricing that you'll ever be able to get on it today. Okay. So go ahead, help them with the wish list. Now, this is where you want to go while you're helping them with the wish list. These are the top things that you want to focus on. This is usually what customers go for. Okay. For one, you want to start off with the ultimate page, and when you do this, open it all up and kind of read their body language. Okay. So you want to introduce it, right? So, hey, Mrs. Jones, this is the complete set. I'll show you what you already have, the pieces you don't, and then I'll show you why it makes sense to own them, right? And then now you want to say that and then just continue, right? Like if they're comfortable. If they open up the complete set and they're like, oh, wow, that's great. Okay, we could definitely upgrade her there. If they open up the complete set, they're a little standoffish to it. Like you can clearly tell, you always want to say, hey, Mrs. Jones. I mean, now it doesn't mean that you have to get a complete set. You can use it as a reference point. Once again, keeping it comfortable for the customer, okay? So you want to go through the cookware and flatware first. Then you want to flip through the starter sets. And now starter sets, I always introduce them as great for gifts. So those are the gift sets that I sell. Gifts and accessories, those are add-on pieces, 2 sets. And then I'm hunting knives first. So that's basically the order in which you want to go through it all. And you want to have control over the book, right? You want to make sure that they're going through the book at a steady pace. So you want to be stopping them and talking to them on every page, right? Because you don't want them to finish going through the book before you're done your sharpening, before you're finished with your sharpening. So now the way you introduce, well, there are four very, very popular knives that customers love to buy. And if you get them to buy these 4 knives, I mean, for one, you've already gotten yourself a Siggy upgrade if they have a homemaker, and then you're already on your way to upgrading them to an ultimate set. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's gonna be like 500 CPO if they don't get the full upgrade, right? So, hey, Mrs. Jones, listen, like when there are 4 most popular pieces that most custom owners own, and once you get to those pages, I gotta show you those pieces, okay? So the first one's the boning knife, okay? So of course, you want to introduce it. So, Mrs. Jones, do you ever usually cut raw meats from time to time, right? And I don't know, Andrew, do you want me to go more specifically into like all the verbiage that I use for these 4 pieces, or just kind of briefly introduce them?
You can if you have time.
Okay.
But I know it's
Yeah. Well,
right now, so we got to wrap up. So just whatever you think is best.
yeah. I'll just briefly introduce them, right? So basically, the boning knife. I mean, of course, hey, Mrs. Jones, you want to introduce the boning knife. After that, you want to introduce the petite chef, the hearty slicer, and then lastly, the cheese knife. Okay, cheese knife is the #1 best. If you can sell the customers on those 4 knives, I mean, literally, you already have yourself a signature set upgrade right there, and you're on the way to an ultimate upgrade. Okay. After that, I mean, simply you're going through, right? You're continuing to sharpen. You're gonna go to the starter sets. Now, the way I introduce the starter sets is like, hey, Mrs. Jones, so this is a really, really cool way for you to get your kids started on Cutco, right? So it's exclusive to Cutco owners who have kids that are old enough to be Cutco owners. All right. So it's nothing too big, too fancy, or too gourmet. It's just a real basic, small little starter set for them to get started on, and then they could always just add on after. Right. So the way I love to do it, if they have 4 kids, you can do a buy 3, get 1 free deal. That always works out a lot. If they have 3 kids, you could do a buy 2, get 1 free. And if they have 2 kids, you do a buy 2, get free table knives. Right. Always want to throw in special deals. And then basically you're going through everything. I'm going to go through the prices lastly, just to wrap up, since I think that's one of the most important parts. Okay, the close.
Yep.
Now, towards the end, while you're basically at like gifts and accessories, you're probably on your like 3rd to 2nd and to last knife. This is where you want to start introducing your goal, right? So basically you want to goal share. Hey, Mrs. Jones, by the way, do you mind if I share any of my goals and the reasons, some of the reasons why I'm working so hard today, Mrs. Jones? And of course, you're in building a rapport. I mean, 99% of the time, they're always going to say that, right? So you want to paint the big picture, right? Show them what you're working for, working toward, and then after you kind of want to take them on an emotional roller coaster, right? So Mrs. Jones, oh my goodness, my goal, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a cardiothoracic surgeon. It's actually what I'm in school for right now. I want to have the #1 office in the entire region. And then you're going up, right? And actually, Mrs. Jones, my goal right now is to sell $20,000, and I don't even know how I'm gonna do it. Like I had 5 appointments, they just canceled on me. I'm literally only at 5,000 for the week, Mrs. Jones. I literally have like two 2 days left, right? But Mrs. Jones, like I know, and this is where you introduce that you're fully committed. Mrs. Jones, I know I'm fully committed to hitting my goal, and no matter what, I am 100% certain that I'm gonna hit my goal, right? So it's kind of just bringing them through that. I like to call it an emotional roller coaster. And then of course you also want to say like, so Mrs. Jones, I'm fully committed. Now you don't have to buy a thing, but I do appreciate the chance just to sharpen your knives. But if you like the deal that I'm able to give you, and if you're comfortable with it, comfortable enough to fit it into your budget, then I encourage you to go ahead and get it today. Because not only would you be getting an amazing deal, you'd also be helping me reach my goals. So thank you so much, Mrs. Jones, for even letting me share my goals with you. And I mean, as you can see, I'm doing a lot more than just trying to rid the world of bad knives, right? I love to add that in there. Mrs. Jones, as you can see, I'm doing a lot more than trying to rid the world of bad knives. I have a lot of ambition and purpose in what I'm doing. And of course, I want you to get whatever Cutco you're getting today for your benefit and for your family's benefit. But I also wanted you to see how much of a benefit that it would be towards me in supporting my goals as well too. So that's how I always tie in my goals and kind of the verbiage that I say, right? So just going back to the pieces, whenever you're writing down the prices during this time, you want to have them write recommendations. Always have a recommendation binder with you. I think that's the reason why I've never gone lower than 10.
Yeah, can you walk through that last thing just before we wrap up here? Is what are you doing to set up recommendations during the service call, and just walk through that quickly.
Okay. What am I doing to set up recommendations during the service call? Simply, I'm pulling out my recommendation binder right in the beginning where I pull out my blue book. And I pull it out in a way where I put it down and I subtly like have it facing them. So the entire time that I'm doing the actual appointment, they see customer recommendations on the folder. They see the recommendations. So they know I'm going to ask it. After my service calls, before I'm even finished, they're like, oh, I'm going to go ahead and recommend you to. Just don't worry. I see the binder, right? So they already see it there. Once again, when you're asking the first 4 important questions, oh, Mrs. Jones, aren't you glad you were recommended? That's also hinting, letting them know that, oh my goodness, yeah, I really, really do appreciate that I was recommended. And that's going to put them in the mindset to recommend more friends. And then, of course, just page 16, have that memorized. Say that word for word on
You just
all
do
my
page.
service
You
calls.
usually just do page 16, just like normal, and get recommendations.
Dude, it's page 16. Page 16 works every single time, and I get at least 10 recs on every single service call.
Cool.
So you're having them do that while you're writing down the prices. After you introduce the prices, get them on the 5-pay. I usually always just tell the 5-pay prices to previous Cutco owners because, I mean, like more than likely they already know that. That's usually the way they pay through it. So I always introduces, hey, Mrs. Jones. So it's like, let's say if it's a $1,500 order, it's like $300 on our 5-month interest-free investment option. And let's just explain them to that with the fingers like you taught me. So, hey, Mrs. Jones, you're just paying that one small fifth today. You're going to get your knives in about a week and a half. After that, you're just paying that one small fifth, Mrs. Jones, once in November, once in December, all the way until February, and then you're done. You never have to worry about upgrading or buying anything else for your kitchen ever again. So did you want to go ahead and try out the signature set today for just $300 on the 5-pay or anything else like that? And you just close it like that. Works every time.
Cool. Awesome. Love it. Any last minute thoughts or any questions coming up for you, Daniel, as you go through this?
No, that was pretty fire, pretty clear.
Cool. Jonathan, I know you got to run here, so thank you for taking out the time today to hop on this call. Give us some service call fire here, and I think the biggest thing is, again, recapping what you said, is going back with going into it with the right mentality, setting the tone at the very beginning of the presentation, seed dropping and building great rapport as you sharpen the first few knives, and then the second 2 components of it are getting the customer to build a very, very big wish list. Right? Telling is not necessarily selling as you go. And I think the last step is just closing off the order and making sure you close and setting up the close so it does not feel pressured with the customer, but they feel excited and to get it.
Right. And I mean, add to that, yeah, you want to make sure you get everything on the wish list. The reason why I like to write it down is because, like, you want to make sure you get flatware, you get cookware, and you get the knives on the wish list. You want to give them an option with each of them.
And
I
so
love to present.
Just to be clear, by the way, you're just adding up the total, giving them that price, and giving them a little bit of discount on it, and then you're closing on that.
No, actually, I don't give you discounts. I just give them three. I give them three options. Yeah, we don't get free stuff. I give them three options, right? Like, I give them, hey, this is what's going to be with the knives. This is what's going to be with the knives and the flatware. This one is going to be the knives, flatware, and cookware. And of course, just go through it like the small, medium, and large clothes.
Cool. And just like, hey, which one did you want?
Yeah, and like just show them the 5 pay price for each of them. So, hey, Mrs. Jones, like I said, I'm not here to heckle you. I mean, a phrase that everybody should be saying should be like, hey, Mrs. Jones. I mean, it takes me a minute to usually figure out the prices, and the reason for that is because I don't believe in haggling. So once I offer you this price, this is going to be the best final price I could possibly get for you, Mrs. Jones. So yeah, and that's why I take a little bit of time. This also stops them from asking stuff like, hey, can you get a better deal? Because if you just told them that you're getting the best deal, they're not going to ask that question as well too, and you won't have to drop down or give.
And then so you give them 3 options, have them pick which one. If they don't like any of those options, you just drop down to smaller options from there of a smaller wish list.
Yeah. If they don't like that option, if you don't like that, like, yeah, for example, if they don't like the smallest option, you just start, hey, Mrs. Jones, so out of these, which do you think you could probably live without? Like the flatware or like this new set of knives?
Cool.
And it's like, okay, cool. So without the flatware, it would just be blank.
Awesome. All right, sounds good, Jonathan. Thanks again for all the help here today. Have an awesome one. I'm going to stop recording now after watching this video. Hope you